Good morning, Peace Chapel. Good morning. Continuing in a series that we started a few weeks ago, titled Mood Swings. We're talking about these moods and what makes us tick, what makes us move from hot to cold. My daughter made these for me. She told me that she spent a lot of time making them, and I didn't spend a lot of time using them. So I'm going to use them today even if they don't fit, because I certainly appreciate her spending a lot of time making them. There's nothing like having your kids involved in things that you feel are important to you, and there's nothing more important to me than my faith. And so I want to walk this journey with my family, and so I appreciate her making these for me. Happy. This is a happy emoji. Isn't it good to feel happy? Yeah. It's good to feel happy. But every now and then we swing and we start feeling like this, right? And I was thinking too, as we were preparing for this, how many times I shifted just this morning from here to here.
Okay.
The swing, right? From here to here. And I started thinking about it, like, okay, who's really in control of that? I mean, does it have anything to do with outside forces? Does it have anything to do with environment? Or is it solely up to me when it comes to how I feel? Is it something that I can blame somebody else for, or is it really, really up to me? And that is the question. And that's really what we've been talking about this entire series, is our mood swings. And are we in control of our mood, or is our mood in control of us? Is it possible to master our mood? Look, Maya, I'm still using it. Is it possible to master our mood, or do we have to be mastered by our moods? And so today what we're going to do is we're going to start another part of the series that we're going to spend a few weeks talking about. We have 3 more messages included today, and we're going to really look within. I mean, I think it's important that we really look within and find out, is there some things that we can control? Are there things that we can control on the inside that prevents us from moving from here to here? You know, I'm here when I leave the home, but then somewhere along the line, when I run into traffic, I go to here. I'm here when I leave the home, and somewhere down the line when I get that text message, I go from here to here. You know, so how can I do something about these constant mood swings? Because moods create energy, and if the energy is bad, it affects our entire day. It can run things away from us that are extremely valuable. And if the energy is bad, it can also attract things to us that are very harmful. And so I think it's important that we look within, namely that we look at the soul. It's important that we learn some things about the soul, that we begin to look at the soul, because the soul is connected to our emotions. I think just like we focus on cleansing our bodies, right? There's something that I did called a 7-day detox. And you take these pills and you eat certain things, and it cleanses your body. It cleanses your body of all of the toxins and the poisons. And we went to the fair a few years ago, and they had this device where they had water, and you put your feet inside the water, and based on the color of the water, they can tell you things that could potentially happen to you later on down the line. Now, I don't know whether or not that's true or not, but supposedly the water and what's in the water is drawing all the toxins down to the water, and they can look at the color of it, and they have a chart, and they can tell you what's going on the inside of your body. And then I thought about when I used to visit my mom. My mom was a smoker. I think she eventually stopped smoking. But she was a smoker, and the smoke smell would get all on her furniture. It would be in the carpet, and it would be in the walls. Some of you guys have probably experienced that when you go into the home or a car of a smoker. The smell is there even though they're not smoking. And what I noticed was that when I would leave my mom's house and I would go into another environment, other people could smell the smoke. Even though I didn't smoke, I picked up that smell just from being in her house. And she wasn't even smoking when I was in there. It was just that the smell was in the house, and it came with me, it traveled with me, it attached itself to my clothes. And I believe for many of us, that's what happens to our souls.
All right. Okay.
That when we are around the culture, when we're around the world, the message of the culture, what characterizes the culture begins to attach itself to our souls. And just like we need to detox our bodies, we need to learn how to detox our souls. And so here's something that, if you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. It should be on the screen. You are not a body with a soul, but you are a soul with a body. It's very important that we get this. We are not bodies with a soul, but we are souls with a body. What is your soul? The soul, your soul, my soul, that is the real you.
All right.
It is the real me. It is what makes us significant.
All right.
That your life is not active without your soul. If you remove your soul from your life, then you're nothing but a shell. Your soul is what provides significance to your life. In fact, we looked at this verse the first week that we started this series, and you can see that in the beginning, that was the way it's always been. God created us in this way. In Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, it says, "And the Lord God formed man out of the dust of the ground." This is Adam. God is forming Adam. And it says, He formed Adam out of the dust of the ground. But notice it says, "and breathed into his nostrils." God breathed into his nostrils. So Adam is there. The shell is there. The form is there. But then God breathes into his nostrils what? The breath of life. And notice it says, "and man became a living soul." And so Adam was there, the shell was there, but he wasn't activated until God breathed breath into his body. For the next couple of weeks, we're going to take a closer look at the soul. And today we're going to look at the restless soul. The restless soul. What is a restless soul? Let me give you guys some symptoms. It's not on the screen, but you need to know if you have a restless soul. The restless soul is always searching, but unable to find. This is the restless soul, and how it affects our moods, and how it affects our bodies, and how it affects our attitudes. Always searching, but unable to find. Interested in everything, but satisfied with nothing. That is the restless soul. The restless soul is anxious, always concerned about what's going to happen if I do this, if I do that. The restless soul is anxious. The restless soul is intense. It's always urgent. Everything is urgent with the restless soul. Consumed with worry, that's a symptom that you have a restless soul. Constantly concerned about everything. Stressed out. That is a symptom or a sign that you have a restless soul. And then not being able to sleep at night. Not being able to sleep at night because the mind is constantly going and thinking about tomorrow. I think about, for me, in my schedule, you know, I'm involved with 3 leadership teams just here at the church. Just in our small church, I'm actually involved with 3 leadership teams. I have counseling that I do throughout the week. These are weekly things that I do. It's not uncommon for me to have 8 meetings in one day. 8 meetings. That's very common for me. I rarely go through a week where I don't have at least one day where I have 8 meetings. I have to prepare for the sermon. And there's a lot of work that goes into preparing for a sermon. I have to prepare for trainings that I do. I have Rebuild LA, that's my community development corporation. I'm also a part of another community development corporation called Restore Hope, Faith-Based Alliance. And so I have a lot of things going on. My schedule is rigorous. And sometimes when I'm trying to go to sleep at night, Karen, I'm thinking about what I got to do. And I can't fall asleep because I'm constantly thinking about what I have to do, and then my concern for the church. See, some people, they just show up on Sundays, right? But for me, a lot of thought goes into this because this is my heart. You guys, I can't even express to you guys how much I love the church. Not only Peace Chapel, but especially Peace Chapel. I love the local church, and I'm concerned about you. I'm concerned about your family. I'm concerned about how you feel. I'm concerned about the worship service. Is it going to go well? Is the sound going to be right? Is the slides going to be right? All of these things are going through my mind constantly. And oh, by the way, I do have a family. All right. Is my daughter okay when she's away in college? Is my son okay away in college? Is my wife okay? Is my kids okay? Do I have enough money to... So my mind is constantly going. Should I get involved in this business? Should I leave that business alone? Mine is constantly going. And so it's not uncommon. It's easy for a person like me to have a restless soul. But what is the cause? What is the cause of a restless soul? I want to suggest to you guys, this is just my suggestion. You don't have to believe this if you don't want to, but my suggestion is the number one cause for a restless soul is being out of alignment with God. Now, some people don't believe that, and that's okay. But I'm telling you what I've experienced. I live this stuff. The number one cause for a restless soul is being out of alignment with God. Now, we try to patch this thing up using all types of other things because we think it's other stuff, right? We think it's the people that we're dating. We think it's the environment that we live in. I just got to get a better house. I just got to get a better car. We think it's those things that's causing our souls to be restless. But the reality is, the truth of the matter is, the number one cause for the soul being restless is being out of alignment with God. I want to share this Bible passage with you guys to illustrate this. Again, we looked at this the first week, but I want us to look at this under this grid right here. In Genesis chapter 4, verses 11 through 12, it's talking about Cain and Abel. That's the second generation of God's creation. Remember, Adam and Eve was the first generation. They had children, Cain and Abel. And so the Bible records something for us of their children. They made a mistake. They committed a sin. It caused them to get out of alignment with God. It started to affect their mood, their attitude. And then the same thing happened to their children. And so it says in Genesis chapter 4, verses 11 through 12, it says, this is after Cain had committed something. He did something that God told him not to do. It caused him to be out of alignment with God. It says, now you are under a curse. That's a very important word. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. This is God speaking to Cain, and he's telling him, you are under a curse because you did something you know you shouldn't have did. See, that's what moves us out of alignment with God. God lets us know the things that we should do and we shouldn't do. And when we do things that's wrong, it's not most of the time. 99.9% of the time, it's not an issue of ignorance. All right. It's just willful disobedience. This is what I want to do. Right. We are so bent on doing things our way. And when we want to do things that don't line up with the way that God wants to do things, and we do it anyway, we can expect consequences as a result of it. And so now God is issuing out these consequences. And he says the ground is cursed. You're driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood. You killed your brother, even though I told you need to check your attitude. Right. I warned you before it happened, and oftentimes God will warn us, right? Wise people. We have have wise people around us who have been there and done that, and oftentimes we need to borrow their maps,
Teach.
run certain things by them.
Yeah.
Should I marry this guy? Should I go any further in this relationship? Should I take this business deal? Should I move? Should I go to this school? We need to run it by other people, right? And when we run it by other people and they give us wisdom that's clear and concise, and we choose to do what's contrary, we can expect consequences.
Yeah.
It moves us out of alignment with God. And he goes on to say, when you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. And so you're putting in the work, but you're not getting the results. Putting in the work, but not getting the results. Putting in the work, but not getting the results. That's frustrating. And then he goes on to say, look, this is the part that I really want to capture. He says, you will be a restless wanderer on the earth. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth. And so what was the cause of his restless soul? The cause of his restless soul was he got out of alignment with God. Solomon talks about the meaninglessness of life when we're not lined up with God. He says this in Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verses 22 through 23. He says, for what does a person gain from everything that he accomplishes and from his inner life struggles, right? His inner life struggles that he undergoes while working on earth. He says, indeed, all of his days are filled with sorrow, and his struggles bring grief. In fact, look at this. This is the part that I want to capture. In fact, his mind remains restless when?
Throughout the night.
Throughout the night.
All right?
Can't sleep at night. Because he has a restless soul, because she has a restless soul. How did it happen? It happened because he or she moved away from God's will, God's plan for their life. That will lead to a restless soul. And so we know how to detox the body. There are so many things out there on the internet that teach us how to detox the body, right? If you don't want to use the pills, you can do it naturally. We know how to detox the body. But how do you detox the soul?
Come on.
See, you should be glad that you're here because I'm telling you, look, there's not, you should be glad that you're here because I'm getting ready to give you the goods.
Yeah.
And so if you checked out, you need to check back in. If you need to leave early, you might want to hold up. How do you detox the soul? What is the cure? If you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. This is going to sound like preacher talk right here. It's going to sound like preacher talk. It's almost going to sound like a cliche, but I'm telling you the truth. Your soul can find rest in only God and God alone.
There it is.
The only place that you can find rest for your soul. Look, it sounds like preacher talk, right? It sounds like preacher talk, but I'm telling you, it's not just for preachers. It doesn't just come from preachers. If you talk to people who are truly at peace with themselves, people who just move through life, they just kind of move through life with a rhythm, right? And they don't allow outside things to shake them off or throw them off course. Not people who try to act happy on Sundays, but I'm talking about people who are generally happy and in control of their moods. What they've discovered is the only place where you can find rest for your soul is in God. That is the only place. David said this in Psalm 62, verse 1. I love this verse. Look what he says. He says, truly my soul finds rest where?
In God.
In God. My salvation comes from Him. Salvation there is not just being saved and going to heaven, but being saved from trouble. Any type of trouble, any type of outside trouble that comes against you, David is saying that for him, his soul finds rest in God. car accident that he didn't expect, his soul finds rest in God. He gets a pink slip at his job, his soul finds rest in God. The person that he's put his trust in this relationship, he threw it all on the line, they let him down. His trust and his hope and his faith is in God. It's not about the outside circumstances. We've got to get this right here. There's no hope. There's no hope for the restless soul other than putting your trust, your hope, and your faith in God. Jesus said this. He said this in Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 through 29. He says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened down." Anybody ever experienced that? Don't lie. Don't you dare lie because we at church. We've all experienced being weary and burdened down. Some of you experienced it this morning, right? He says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened down." Don't turn to your friends and start gossiping. Don't turn to the alcohol that only provides temporary relief. Don't turn to the weed that only provides temporary relief. Isn't it interesting that these marijuana dispensaries are popping up everywhere? I mean, it seems like everybody is getting high. And they're so happy when they're high. They're so happy when they're high, but they don't stay high. They got to come down eventually. And when they come down, they still got issues with their bills because they didn't manage their money good. They still got issues with their relationships because they got a stank attitude. None of that stuff goes away permanently when you put your hope and turn to other things and stuff. Jesus said, you need to come to me.
Yeah.
Look what he says, take my yoke. Take my yoke. Take my power. Take my rest. Take what I can do for you. Put your trust in me, he says, and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for what? For your souls. See, I'm not making this stuff. This stuff is in the Bible. And so you find rest for your soul in God alone. But the question is, how? How can you practically find rest for your soul? If you're taking notes, mental notes, written notes, whatever it is, come back up here for a minute. This is what you need to write down. This is important. You need to be still in the presence of God. You have to learn how to be still in the presence of God. Psalm 46 verse 10, look at what it says. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. Be still. You have to learn how to sit in the presence of God. But we're so busy. We got so much stuff to do. We got to jump on social media. We got to go to this meeting, that meeting, prepare for this meeting. We feel like we don't have enough time. Listen to me. If you don't have enough time to sit in the presence of God, you are out of alignment with God, and you will never find rest for your hopeless, restless soul. But what do you do when you're in the presence of God? You have to learn to be patient. Psalm 37 verse 7 says, be still in the presence of the Lord and wait patiently for him to act. Stop getting ahead of God. We keep getting ahead of God, and when we get ahead of God, we go through these mood swings. Look, Maya, I'm using it again. You keep getting ahead of God. He says, don't worry about evil people who prosper or fret about their wicked schemes. See, we trying to plot. We trying to plot. They did me wrong, so we spending time thinking about revenge instead of waiting patiently for the Lord. I know people do you wrong. People do me wrong. It bothers me, right? You know, just the thought that they gonna get away with what they did to me just bothers me even more. And so I'm constantly trying to devise a way to let them know that they did me wrong and make sure they never do it again. But God says, if you hold your peace, I'll fight for you. That's what God says. He says, if you hold your peace, I will fight for you. And so we don't need to worry about them. It seems like they're prospering. Seems like they're getting away with it. They don't driving around nice cars, we in buckets. They seem to be prospering and we seem to be struggling. And so we feel like it's something we need to do on our end. We got to get real crafty and maneuver. God says, no, you need to wait. So you need to wait patiently in the presence of God. Stop rushing your quiet time. Just sit there. But some people have a problem with quietness. It drives them crazy. It's just too quiet. I need some noise. If you need some noise, if you just have to have some noise, why not put on some soft music, right? Some soft music while you wait in the presence of God. But it can't be soft music. It can't be soft music with your cell phone right there. See, the problem with the soft music and the cell phone being right there is the cell phone can become a distraction.
Yeah, distraction.
See, the enemy, the outside forces, have an entryway into our souls, oftentimes through our devices.
Yeah, that's true.
And so if you have to have sound, I've learned to sit in the presence of God with no sound at all. But if you have to have sound, why not some nice soft music that you hear in the background while you're waiting patiently on God? Just sitting in His presence. Not saying anything. Just waiting. Patient. Let's try it right now. Just quietly. Thinking about the goodness of God. Sitting in the presence of God, waiting patiently for Him. Psalm 130, verses 5 through 6. David said, I wait for the Lord.
Yes.
Look, then he says, my soul, we're talking about my soul. He says, my soul waits. Why did he say, I wait for the Lord, and then come back and say, my soul waits? And with hope, I wait for His word. I'm waiting to hear from God before I move. Sometimes we move hearing from other people. We listen to other people, right? Instead of waiting on God because God is taking too long. I need a man right now. I'm getting old. My biological clock is ticking. I'm running out of time. I need the money right now. I need it right now. So we get ahead of God and we don't wait for His word and we listen to other people. Look, he goes on to say, my soul waits for the Lord more than those who watch for the morning and more than those who watch for the morning. My soul waits on the Lord. He says instead of being up and you look and you're like, dang, I've been up all night and the sun is coming up. I'll be glad when the sun comes up so I can get this day started. The psalmist is saying, I wait on the Lord's word like that. I'm waiting on a word from the Lord. And so what do you do when you're waiting? I'm giving you tidbits for your time in the presence of God. What do you do when you're waiting? You reflect on God's goodness. God has been good to you. We lose sight of that when we start looking at outside circumstances, when we start comparing our lives to other people, we lose sight of the fact that God has been good to us. And so when you're sitting there waiting patiently with God, it's just you and God, and you're sitting there waiting patiently, and your mind is all over the place. I've experienced this during my quiet time. My mind is jumping all over the place. When you're sitting there waiting patiently, you need to learn how to redirect your mind. See, I'm thinking about the meeting that I have later on that day when I get in the presence of God. I'm just being honest with you, right? So you don't feel like you're the only one. I'm thinking about what I got to do later on as far as preparing my meals. All types of things are running across my mind when I'm sitting there with my quiet time. But what you have to learn how to do is redirect your mind. Oftentimes we're thinking about the trouble that might come later on down the line, and we have these anxious thoughts. You begin to redirect your mind and remind yourself of how God has been good to you in the past. See, what I do is I keep a journal of answered prayers. You need to learn how to journal your answered prayers. Oftentimes we forget that we prayed about something when God answers. But if you write these things down. I pray that God did this. And then you write it down when he did it. When you're starting to go through those times of anxiety, where your mind is all over the place, you redirect your mind back to that moment when God answered your prayers. When God was good to you, you have to learn how to redirect your mind. This thing is very mental. And so you need to practice reflecting on the goodness of God. You need to practice redirecting your mind. And then I want to conclude with this. We need to learn how to preach to our souls.
Yeah. Good.
You guys need to become good preachers.
Good.
See, here's a good thing about becoming good preachers to your soul. You don't have to be that good in front of people. Some people are anxious, right? When it comes to standing in front of people and talking, the thought of it makes you sweat and nervous, right? You don't have to be good at standing and talking to people when you preach to your soul, because nobody is there but you and God.
Yeah.
And you need to learn how to tell your soul what to do. If you listen to this, if you learn how to put your soul in check,
Right.
you will never have a problem with your emotions again.
Right.
You got these people walking around jaws and tight, and the energy is so bad you don't even want to be around them. That's a picture of what's going on the inside. The soul is disturbed.
Yeah.
Right.
And so when the soul is disturbed and all over the place, you need to learn how to preach to the soul and tell the soul what to do. If you don't, outside circumstances will seep into your soul and tell you what to do.
Right.
And then the next thing you know, you go from here to here.
Yeah.
And you're trying to figure out, why do I feel this way? What is going on with me? Everything seems to be okay, but I feel so bad. I feel so sad. I feel so mad. I feel so angry. Why do I feel this way? Why do I keep snapping on my kids? Why do I keep snapping on my mate? Why do I keep snapping on my coworker? They didn't even do anything to me. You got to learn how to put your soul in check, because all of these things are going on the inside. Look at how David preached to his soul. And I'm going to leave you guys with this verse. Psalm 131, verse 2. David said, "Instead, I have calmed and quieted myself." He's talking about his soul, church. He says, he's taking responsibility. He says, I have calmed and quieted my soul. I've calmed and quieted my internal being. We have control over this stuff. You don't have to give up. You don't have to give in. You can calm and quiet your soul. He says, like a weaned child who no longer cries for its milk.
Right.
The baby has been weaned. It's eating regular food now. It doesn't look right for 12-year-olds to be still on the nipple. He says, like a baby has been weaned from the milk. He says, as a baby cries out, no longer for the milk, my soul no longer cries out. Yes, like a weaned child is my soul within me. That's called taming the soul. You've seen those wild horses, big, huge horse, couple of 1,000 pounds. But that horse can be tamed. But it takes time, it takes work. And just like the horse can be tamed, just like an animal can be tamed, your soul can be tamed. But it's going to take some work. You have to give attention to your soul. And so why do you feel the way that you feel? The reason why you feel the way that you feel is because your soul is restless. Things are out of whack on the inside. And I'm telling you, the emphasis of the world, the emphasis of the culture, is we dress up the outside.
Right.
And if I dress up the outside, if I get the right hair, if I get the right boobs, if I get the right butt, if I get the right shoes, if I get the right car, if I get the right house, all outside stuff. I can't believe, I mean, growing up, I never thought that I would see so many fake butts. Not that I was looking at butts. They're everywhere. Because people think that that helps, right? That makes you happy, right? That's only temporary happiness. If you want lasting happiness where you can move through life and you're not affected by outside circumstances, you have to do some work on the inside. There is a cure. There is a cure for the restless soul. I only gave you guys 1 point today. That's it. There is a cure for the restless soul. And the cure is God and God alone. You need to sit and wait patiently for God's word before you act. Learn how to practice sitting patiently, waiting for the Lord.